You had the opportunity to do 2 modules for us. We're hoping that happened because we have an opportunity to share with the state on April 30th our feedback. So make sure you sign in. There's a link to the training. You're going to have all the information that we would share in those 3 hours to a certain degree within your folder and also within the presentation. So if you want to dig in anywhere, feel free in your spare time. Yes. You wouldn't have worked with Jenny McFarland, but she does a behavioral training that says, don't trigger my Tigger. And so when I did this with Bertha Kindergarten, I had to add Winnie the Pooh because she would get the joke. So now you're in on the joke. So I don't know what your triggers are, but don't make them a Tigger. So before we kind of get into all this, did you want to take notes for, so now that you've gone through those modules, if you can kind of think back, because that was a while ago, do you guys have any feedback? What were your thoughts? Be completely honest. You're not going to hurt our feelings because we didn't develop it.
The modules had a lot of different links that took you all around.
Yes. Yes.
To navigate back and know where to go to.
We completely agree with that. Thank you. What else?
I also just kind of felt like it was a lot of information out here. I need it to be streamlined. So like I need to know like how to explain this to here. It doesn't have it.
Right.
You know, so
right.
A little bit.
Yeah.
But got lost in the sauce.
Yes. So you got a lot of big picture,
yeah.
But you need the meat, the nitty gritty. That's what we're going to hope to give you more of today. What else? Anything? Positive. Okay. Thank you. We will definitely share that. And our goal is probably to do this again sometime next year in a little bit more in depth. But here we are today. And we're going to get you through it. And we're always available, right? So if after this you have some meetings coming up or you need COS help, please reach out. Like that's why we're here. So.
And everyone should have a yellow folder
yes.
on their table. If you don't, let me know and I'll get it to you. That's all the COS information we're going to go through today.
And just to kind of give you the roadmap for today, we're going to have some review of information, some chatting at your tables, and then at the end, we're going to do a case review. The case review is mandatory for training. It's fun because on their thing it says optional, but it's not. We're not sure why it says optional. That's another piece of our feedback. But so my goal is between like 2:10, 2:15-ish, we're at that case study. So again, we're not going to spend a whole lot of time on some of these things. If you open your folder, you have some authentic child assessment information, and then you have some information about the outcome areas, and then you have another graphic that this is actually my favorite one about the 3 childhood outcomes. So hopefully by now you have realized that there are 3 outcomes. The first one is developing positive social emotional skills. So how they are interacting with adults and peers. So friend, I don't know your name, but you said you wanted the nitty gritty of how to explain this to a parent. So this is what I would say this is what I say in an IEP meeting. You know, when we think about this first section, we're talking about those social emotional skills, how they're interacting with people in their homes, people in community settings, other peers. And I kind of give that blanket statement, and then we talk about it. And then after we talk about it, then I move into the rating because it's all fresh in your mind, right? So that's kind of the best flow for it, and we'll get into that a little bit more later. The second area is acquisition and use of knowledge and skills. So I describe this one as a lot of communication falls in here, but vocabulary communication, like how many words are we using and are we using it functional? Also those pre-academic skills are falling into this area, those early reading, early math skills. And then the last outcome is using appropriate behaviors to meet needs. So this is a lot of self-help skills, your fine motor, how you're using your hands, your gross motor, how you're using your body. Potty training falls in here, asking for help. That's exactly how I would describe that to a parent. And so this is a nice a handout to kind of have next to you while you're doing the COS, because it gives you your little, kind of cues there as far as if you're searching for additional information, or if you're kind of getting to the end of the conversation, you can kind of go through and say, okay, we've talked about these things. So you have in your folder, we're going to skip over Jeopardy, unfortunately, and we're going to skip over functional or not. You get to the activity sheet, and this is Jack's narrative. And this is what we're going to spend a little bit of time right now doing. You get a chance to read about Jack, and it's front and back, so don't miss that. Oh, yes. And as you're reading, I want you to highlight some information that you could put into his child outcome summary, into that COS. And I'm going to give you, I'm going to say we're going to be fast readers today. We're going to skim, right? So about 5 minutes. I'm not going to tell you, but I will tell you that the training says 30 minutes. But I think 30 minutes is a little excessive. We agreed with that. So we're going to meet in a fun middle. And then after that, you have some table talk. So I'm going to talk to you about that after the 5 minutes, but that'll be the next thing that we do. So what I want you to remember about authentic assessment is that this is what helps you go beyond the standardized assessment, right? So when I think about the Battelle Developmental Inventory and I ask, them to name colors for me that day, and they're completely shut down, they don't do it, I mark a 0, we move on. That is a piece of authentic assessment that then when I'm talking with a teacher or I'm observing them during one of my working sessions with them and they start to name colors, then certainly in that second area, that outcome 2, I'm going to put that they can name colors, right? That's the point of authentic assessment, is to sit down and get to know your kids beyond just that standardized assessment of, yes, can they do it in that minute right then and there. Authentic assessment also allows you to not just base your information on one observation or one interaction. The goal is to get your teacher, your speech therapist involved, your OT involved, and most importantly, your parent involved. And we'll talk a little bit about how to do that as well. So in your groups there at your tables, and if you need to find a table, because I see some singles, I want you to at least find one other person, and you're going to look at your table talk, and it talks about authentic assessment, and it asks you some questions, but I want you to focus on number 1, number 4, and number 5, and then we'll come back and talk about that. I'm going to give you 5 minutes for that as well. And just kind of shout out, what are some authentic assessment practices you're currently using?
Classroom observation.
Classroom observation, thank you. What else? Yes, conversing with the student. What else? Playing, love it. What was parent? What was that?
Or their parent. Or
Yes,
maybe if it's
yes, the parent, yes. These kiddos have 4-year-olds. She's got babies, so she's talking to the parents, which is a great resource. And necessary for every COS as much as you can. And we'll talk about that. So that leads us into number 4. How do you involve all team members, including families, in gathering authentic assessment? Anybody using? I see some friends that have been doing the COS for a while. Is anyone using this? So look at My Child's Development. You have this in the back of your folder. So this is a simple way, when you're sending home that 5-day packet to your families, you can include this. And this helps them understand a little bit before they come to the meeting what you're going to be talking about. And then it gives a little box there. And, I get it. Some parents will do this to they'll come in with 3 pages. And then other parents you're going to maybe never talk to. I get that there's a continuum. But this is a great opportunity to try and get your parents involved. And this might take a phone call before you send it home, right? To let them know that there's a little homework in there for them. Because there is a box on the IEP that says collected without parent input, and we are trying very hard to never check that. So if they don't come to the IEP meeting, how can you get their parent input? Somebody tell me. Call them. Email. Send this home, even if they can't make it. Catch them in the car rider line. Catch them out in town. No, maybe.
If you know it's a parent that's difficult.
Yes.
through the year, you can be documenting conversations you've had.
Right.
too. So don't wait until the
Yes.
meeting and be like, I can't call them.
Yes.
Document if you know they're a hard family, and then you have a little bit of data in your notes to go back to,
Yes.
which would be their input.
Right. Yeah, the COS is an ongoing process, so that was a great point, Lisa, that it doesn't have to be right then and there. It could be, you know, a couple months ago, mom said this or whatever. You should also be helping your teachers, your general education teachers, participate in this process. So hopefully by now, but maybe not, you have not had an IEP meeting with one of your teachers this year for a pre-K student. So going over this with them ahead, so they're not like deer in headlights, like, what do you want me to talk about? You know, I'm sure you're doing lots of prep for the academic side of things, of what you want them to bring. This is also a great forum for them to jot some notes down on. And then, of course, your speech and OT, you know, any other related service providers can also participate, you know, in any manner that we've talked about if they can't be at that IEP meeting, because their information is important as well. One thing to note about each outcome is communication falls in each outcome. So your speech therapist, if that is a service that they get, is really valuable in this, because social communication, academic communication, self-help communication, it falls in all three areas. So you don't want to miss that piece when you're doing it. And then number 5, how might you begin to integrate or expand the use of authentic assessment in the COS process? Any like ahas you just had? You can repeat something I just said, I don't care. I just want you to think about something you can do as a next step to help.
I like this one.
Okay?
Definitely, when I was setting goals, it was more
Okay.
like ahead of time.
Yeah.
Do you have this digitally?
Yes.
Yes.
So on the staff portal under special education, there should be a COS folder that should have that on there.
I'll
Yes.
write a note to send it to you one way or the other.
Go ahead.
Is this something that's completed at the annual or is it at the end of the school year?
Good question. We're going to talk about that before we leave. Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't at the last case manager meeting.
Yeah.
Or whatever it was.
To do the modules.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was like, I feel like I have a lot of questions for things.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of preschoolers
Okay.
on my case.
What school are you at?
Jonathan Maker.
Oh, yeah, you do. Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I was asking her, and of course, she doesn't have any preschoolers, so she's
Yeah.
not great.
Yeah.
And like she said earlier, you can reach
Yes.
out to her.
Because you're gonna have some work to do here at the end of the year.
Any of these jobs,
Yeah.
any of my kids.
Yeah. Okay, let's go ahead and switch. What's the next slide? So this is just called, well, not called, this is age anchoring. So this is really important, and you guys have a huge benefit that you have 4-year-olds, right? In birth to kindergarten, we're going from 0 all the way up to 48 months, sometimes beyond if they're not going to pre-K. So you guys have the opportunity to really nail down what does 48 months look like, and up to, you know, 5 years old, 60 months. So there's link there, the North Dakota. There's also the milestone moments there that doesn't look like a link, but it'll take you there if you copy and paste. So this is great to review before you do the COS, to get in your brain, what does it look like for 48 months? The North Dakota has a lot of information under each COS area. You don't have to be able to check off each one to say that they're, you know, that they have age appropriate skills, but it's a guideline. It's more information than you would potentially think about when you think about 4, because I know you guys are zeroed in on those early literacy, the early math skills, you know, that's what you're zeroed in on. This gives you the breadth of all the 3 COS outcomes. Go ahead and... Okay, so then in your folder, you have the decision tree. And way back when, and some of you might still have it in your school somewhere, there was the rating scale. So if you look at the very bottom of this decision tree, and it says not yet, between not yet, all the way across, If you also think about this as a 1 to 7 scale, so 1 being not yet, all the way up to 7 completely. We used to have buckets. It was kind of a weird visual in my mind. The state still uses it. It's still in some of your training. I think you probably saw it in your modules. But what we are guided to from the state is to use the decision tree. And it really does help to guide the conversation to come up with that rating. So if you look at this decision tree, you kind of have a midpoint right here. There's a nice little separation. And so the first question is, do they show any age-appropriate skills in this area? Not a lot of age-appropriate skills, not all age-appropriate skills, any. Any is that key word. So if you're going to answer yes to that, you're going to come off to the right of the scale. If you're going to answer no to that, you're going to come off to the left of the scale. And then you're going to follow it down to get to your final rating. There are some conversations, sometimes most of the time it's easy to answer that first question, right? But then you get into the nitty gritty and you might have some on the team going, I think, if you get down to that second, if we go on the yes route and it says, is the child's functioning age appropriate across all or almost all settings and situations? This is tricky because what setting do you see? School. You don't see home, you don't see therapy, you don't see community. That's why getting all that extra report from other places is important, especially the parent. So you might say yes or no, but think about it. Encores count for that, recess counts for that. So you do have a couple different settings within school. So you're going to answer yes or no to that question, and then to which extent is the child's functioning age appropriate across settings and situations if you said no. And you might say occasional use of age-appropriate skills, but more behavior is not age-appropriate. Or you might say that uses a mix of age-appropriate and not age-appropriate. And that leads you to that final rating. So some people, if you want to go to the next slide, some people on your team might say, wow, I really feel like we're sitting, I'm going to start using numbers now, we're really sitting at like a 5. And then someone else might say, I think it's more like a 4. Your hope and goal is that when you're sitting at the table, no one's saying, I think it's a 1, and someone else is saying, I think it's a 6. Because then you guys are seeing 2 totally different kids. Make sure you're talking about the right kid. But you might come into, and this happens a lot, where one of you is saying, I feel like this is a 5, and someone else is saying, I think this is a 4. And that's good. If you're within one of each other, that's a great conversation to have. And this is when we get into this tipping question. And if you want to click on that ever. Okay. Oh my, that's tiny. Here, I need to look. You can open that on your computer, hopefully, and see it a little bit better. So,
Make it as big as I can.
yep. So ever means that the child has an age-expected skill in their repertoire and uses it in a meaningful way with some consistently, at least occasionally, even if it's not observed in every setting and situation. So we're talking about the very first question on the decision tree. It's that ever question, because this will get some friends kind of wrapped up in, you might have a kiddo who does not look very age appropriate. And it sounds like if you say yes to this, you're saying that they look pretty age appropriate. That's not what you're saying. You're just saying that you see at least some age appropriate skill in some setting. Also remember, this was an aha for me just recently. When I'm evaluating a kiddo and I'm looking at age levels, more so than standard scores in birth to kindergarten, but you guys are looking more at standard scores. But you also have to have your age equivalencies to look for that 25% delay for developmental delay. When you're looking at that, let's say the child is 48 months and they're coming out at, I can't do the math quick enough, 48, 12. They're coming out at say 40 months. That's not a 25% delay, right? So I sometimes get that stuck in my head like, oh, well, they're age appropriate. They're at 40 months. But 40 months is not 48 months, right? So just kind of keeping that in mind a little bit too. Just because they don't have a 25% delay doesn't mean that they're showing age appropriate skills yet either. So this is it's a very thoughtful process, right? Like I'm getting kind of into that nitty gritty and it seems like it could get very overwhelming, but I promise you the more you do it, the easier it gets. If you want to scroll down to tipping, okay. So again, that tipping is, which side are you going to go on? And if you want to scroll down a little bit more, I feel like yeah. It's okay. Yeah.
Not my computer.
That's okay. I just want you to kind of read through the three. I won't read them to you, but if you can get it. So yeah, there we go. The no, the not tipping, and the yes. Just kind of read through those three real quick because we're getting close to our time. So I like this point down here that says teams should not overthink it. So if you're thinking of one example, I'm going to just use throwing a ball as an example. It's a bad example, but there it is. But throwing a ball, and you can think like, have I seen them throw a ball like consistently over at gym class, out on recess? Do they do it at home? Don't get caught up on that. Think about some other gross motor skills. Like don't get that nitpicky. Same thing with when you're writing the COS, you could write pages, right, about a child perhaps, especially one that you know. You're going to be as succinct as you can within those three areas to give a good idea of what that functioning looks like. Because the goal is, with a COS, this is what is marking progress towards age-expected skills. So the goal for us is to move children through special education before they enter kindergarten to get as close to age-expected skills as possible. Does that mean every child's going to be age-expected? No, that's not what that means at all, because we're in special education for a reason, and we know we have students that will not meet age-expected skills perhaps ever in their life, but the goal is to move them closer. So this is our report card. The state will look at this information and determine, are we doing our job effectively? Because if we're not having COSs that move, that's a problem. Go ahead and go to the next slide. Do I have any questions? I know I'm talking fast and a lot. So we've talked a little bit about a difference in ratings. If you have, your team, hopefully again, you're only within 1 point. Sometimes you might be within 2 points of each other. Always go with a lower point. The tipping is very important. Are you going low or are you going high? But then after that, go with your lower point. If you guys are between a 4 and a 5, go for a 4, because that gives opportunity for growth, for you to come back and say, you know what, by the end of pre-K, we might be at a 5 or a 6, right? So just go with a lower point. That's best practice. That's straight from the state. That's not us, trying to get more for our bang for our buck. So, okay. So we've talked a lot about parent input and using that for the COS process. I think we're good there. You've got the child find referral. You're doing some information gathering before that. You might have done some RTI. You might have just done some observations before the child find. All that information is valuable, and you can even start your own little COS doc, outcome 1, outcome 2, outcome 3, and just start putting in some information. So you're not having to do it all at the end. Obviously, your initial evaluation, your reevals, those count. Your formal and informal observations from all providers count. Classroom-based assessments. And it kind of sometimes, you guys know, we say the same thing a lot in the IEP. So a lot of your COS information should also correlate to your present levels of information for certain goal areas, right? So if you're saying the child can, label every letter and say each sound, that should be in both areas. So don't overdo the work. Use it for the present levels. Go ahead. Okay, so also in your folder is the COS cheat sheet for Washington County. I know there were some questions, so you all have 4-year-olds. So if your child was found eligible for special education services before January 1st of this year, you will be responsible for an exit COS by the end of this school year. Now, does it need to be formal IEP meeting? It actually does not. It can be you gathering information from the teacher and the parent and having those conversations of where they sit on the scale outside of an IEP meeting. You're going to do an amendment to do that and add it in. Now, for some of your friends, you're naturally having their annual review or you're naturally having that transition to kindergarten meeting. Don't make it harder on yourself. Just do it. This is great information to inform the next school year. So use it for that. If you have had a child enter pre-K, special education after January 1st, you still have to fill out the COS. You still have to do each area and provide a rating for each area, but you will not do an exit COS. It'll just sit out there forever with just, well, it won't, because eventually you're going to take it off. But it's going to sit out there with no exit, and that's fine. The state gets that because we have to have at least 6 months of instruction. And so, we can't, wave a magic wand and know if we're going to be out before June 1st. So they don't make us do it. So January 1st, you're cut off. Let's see. Definitely at every annual, you will update the COS and you will complete a rating. Make sure you're updating the information that's in there. So it's really tricky when you have, if this kid is coming off an IFSP in birth to kindergarten and we're talking about potty training and that has not been an issue for the entire school year, if there's information in there that says, well, he sits on the seat for about a minute, but you won't use the potty, take all that out. It should be updated to reflect that he's potty trained.
So what would you say about the cutoff is for if you're doing it on an annual, but then you also still have to do the exit?
Yes. So April 1st has always been kind of our guideline, and since that's coming up next week, I think it's a great guideline. So if you're having an annual or an IEP meeting from April 1st on, you can go ahead and do your exit, as long as you have 6 months, right? So that's the other tricky part, is if they came in the fall eligible, you want to make sure you have your 6 months. Yeah.
Did it in December.
Right. Any questions about the,
You can just do an amendment.
right,
Do
yes,
that, you don't have to.
Most of mine, I have
Right.
watched that they were all done in the summer.
Yeah.
I have a lot of
yeah, yeah,
So kind of, it's nice.
yes, yeah,
Double.
right, yeah. Any questions about the actual inputting on the IEP, anything like that? They do a report every summer to make sure that we have our exits in, so just be aware. And it is data that they pull that goes onto our audits. And if we're not, meeting criteria, we're not getting enough children moved up into the, I think it's 2 data points that they like to see from start of COS to end of COS. So we could land into a corrective action plan. And then you get more of us and more training. Let's not do that. Any questions? We're going to go into the case study. And this is on your own, but after you do it once, you might find that you want to chat with someone because by that point you have learned about Braylon. If you click on that link, you're gonna scroll all the way to the bottom and open each section about Braylon, and then it's going to get to the point where it allows you to submit the final COS rating. You will get something after that. I forget what it says. If it says an email or you fill out something, it's all the way at the bottom. Yeah, there's Meet Braylon. So keep going.
And like she said, it says optional, it's not.
It's not optional.
This is a required piece.
Go to expand out the decision tree and link to rating question, the very last one. And scroll up a little. Maybe I missed it. Okay. Once you enter that COS tool, it's going to give you something. whatever that something is, we need you to send it to Andrea Semler, and we can put her email up somewhere.
Put it on.
Yeah, yeah. Andrea Semler is going to be the one who is tracking that everyone is trained. I believe there is a video, so if you guys want to like spread out a little bit, or if you have your headphones, I think we have until about 2:45, maybe 2:50-ish. We're good with that? To read through everything. We're here if you have questions, and like I said, try to do it initially once on your own, and then you can find a buddy if you want to chit chat. Because it will let you keep taking it until you get what they think his COS rating should be.